Hi, it's Amber Bright. Here to share with you a book that I have written, When All Else Fails, Reasons Why I Stay in the Classroom and How You Can Find Your Why. Today I'm reading chapter 9 through 12, which is the end of my book. So I hope that you find something that resonates with you as I read. It's definitely from my heart, and we get to start with one of my favorite chapters, which is all about my year in kindergarten. It was definitely a fun time. But anyways, chapter 9, called The Littles. "Mrs. Bright, you are beautiful," my student proclaimed with a big smile on his face. "Thank you, Jace." "Do you want to know why?" "Sure." "Your earrings." Turns and abruptly walks away. While attending college, kindergarten was the grade I wanted to teach. It was the grade my daughter had entered when my desire to be a teacher was ignited again, if you remember that story. I wanted to be that teacher, the nice, kind, forgiving, and patient teacher that would instill in those students beginning their education to love learning. So when I had the opportunity to do so well into my teaching career, this is how it went. This was my speech, or really plea, at kindergarten graduation that year. I have told my class before that I do not remember a lot about my kindergarten class. I know my teacher had really cool high-heel shoes, but that's about it. I know as time passes, your memory of your kindergarten class will start to fade, but there are some memories I never want you to forget. So when I point to you, and I raised my finger in the air and pointed to my kindergartners, I want you to say, "Don't forget." And so I would point to them, and they would say, "Don't forget." And then I'd point to them again, and they would say, "Don't forget." It was really cute. I do not want you to forget your kindergarten teacher loved science. We made elephant toothpaste, puffball launchers, bird feeders, lava lamps, helicopter seeds, and more. And tomorrow we are doing soda and Mentos. "What?" a student yelled out to laughter from the audience. And then I pointed to them. "Don't forget. I want you to always have a soft spot for Mrs. Bright's favorite Alaskan animal, the moose. There was a great big moose. Don't forget. Remember when you memorized a whole poem? 'Twas the night before Christmas? Don't forget. Remember the groundhog and how he predicted 6 more weeks of winter? How could we forget? Don't forget. I want you to remember the 100th day of school where we dressed like we were 100 years old. Don't forget. And our plants, they grew. I was so worried. I was really, really worried, actually. Don't forget. I want you to remember that time you read a book, how excited you were, and how I jumped up and down with joy. Don't forget. I want you to remember the times we laughed, made friends, and enjoyed being with our classroom family. Don't forget. And never, ever forget how much your teacher loved you. Congratulations on your graduation day. I'm so proud of all of your hard work and all the wrinkles you have gotten on your brain. So hold hands, stick together, and look before you cross the street. Lyrics to the song Kindergarten Wall they had sung during graduation as well. Your learning has just begun, and first grade awaits. When I moved from Texas to Alaska, there was a certain school district I wanted to teach at. The district was where we purchased our home, and if I did not get in that district, I would be looking at about an hour commute, which in the Alaska winter meant snow and ice. Now, I'm not so bad on wintry roads, but being from Texas, I knew this would not be the best idea for me. So the only job left for a teacher out of district was a kindergarten position. Knowing how I decided to be a teacher when I walked into her kindergarten class, I knew I could do it and maybe even like it. It was the grade level I wanted so many years ago. On the wall in the Palmer, Alaska Museum and Visitor Center is a quote from one of the colonists in the area. "I wouldn't have missed the experience of the colony for $1 million, but I wouldn't do it again for $2 million. That's how I feel about kindergarten after teaching it for a year. It was a year to grow in my teaching, engage students in a different way, and be more responsible for their well-being. You have to make sure they eat, make sure they have their coat on and buttoned. You have to make sure that every need is taken care of while building the foundation of a student's desire to be a lifelong learner. It is a lot. I've never felt so bad to end a school year because it was hard to relent the feeling of who is going to take care of them without me." Okay. My dad, he's a legend. I don't know if I can explain him any better. He is confident, tell it like it is, and doesn't mix words often. His demeanor seems gruff, but underneath his harsh exterior, he is surprisingly a very easygoing guy. After years of having him for a dad, my first teacher job fair was a piece of cake. I knew going into the job fair, one district had a job I qualified for, so I built a resume just for them and was prepared to show how I could be the great sixth grade math teacher instead of the kindergarten teacher I had dreamed of in college. When I went to talk to the assistant superintendent of that district, I was met by my father. No niceties, no I'm so glad to meet you, just very direct to the point. Why should I hire you for this job? And boy, was I not intimidated. Thank you, Dad. I was ready. I gave my answer, and I got the job. But wait, I wanted to be a kindergarten teacher. Or did I? When I prepared my classroom in December, I would be starting mid-year. I had no idea how the middle school kids would eventually fit so well with my personality and sense of humor. It became very apparent very quickly, how much I loved that age group. It is where I belong and while there are also struggles and obstacles with the older students, I know it is where I need to be. Middle school students are at a special point in age in their lives. They aren't quite sure who they are and where they fit in. They are finding their identity, friends, and perfecting their personalities into the adults they will eventually become. This special time in their life presents the moment where a teacher has such powerful sway to send students in a path toward success in high school, college, and life, and maybe in a path that will lead them into a science profession like engineering or a future as an astronaut. My year in kindergarten reiterated that fact to me. My year in kindergarten gave me the worst backaches. Those desks are really short. My year in kindergarten gave me the perspective necessary to be an even better middle school teacher. After working so long in the intermediate and middle school levels, going back to my original dream for 1 year was surreal, surprising, inspiring, something I wouldn't have missed for $1 million, but one I wouldn't do again for even $2 million. A week after our school year had ended, I got an email from one of my students' moms. She said she wanted to email you and let you know that her brother is learning how to pedal on his bike. I wouldn't have gotten that from my middle school kids. Kindergarten is just different. What school year has solidified your knowledge you are where you need to be? Kindergarten year was that year for me. The following year, I was back to teaching 6th grade science at a middle school. Knowing where you are supposed to be, knowing you are with the age group that suits you best, it helps build your confidence, enhances your strategies, and allows you to be the teacher your expectations dictate. What grade do you like best? How did you realize the age group was best for you? Do you teach kindergarten? I have a newfound respect for you. Okay, Chapter 10, TOTY, Teacher of the Year. As you can imagine, living in my home, I often talk about school. I often have to preface the conversation. I can't talk. I'm not a professional. This is the last thing about school I'm going to talk about. While I have followed in the footsteps of my mom and grandmother, I've also influenced others to join the profession, including my brother, my husband, and my daughter. My husband is an insurance adjuster. He decided to give teaching a try for 1 year. He was a history teacher, so to have his job, he had to be an assistant football coach and the 7th grade girl basketball coach. My husband loves to run, has completed 7 marathons, but football, basketball, it was not his thing. His hours ran long into the night, and being in an older building with no windows was not quite what he had envisioned. He was a great teacher, though, and I did all of his bulletin boards, so his room was amazing. Just kidding. His students really responded to him, and he was the favorite of most of his students. They actually called him the best male teacher and used the word sassy. Which is what we as his family love to refer to him even now. After that year, though, he decided to return to auto damage. He has a unique viewpoint, more than most husbands, about the load that teachers have, and it drives him crazy when teachers complain it is a thankless job. Again, being an auto damage adjuster, that is a thankless job, if you can imagine. Your customers as an auto damage adjuster are not having the best of days. They are put into the situation through an accident and now are having to deal with the hassles it brings. Auto damage customers don't color you pretty pictures. They do not write you letters about how you changed their life. You do not hear those customers years later as they recognize the difference you have made. You do not get a week of appreciation with countless Starbucks cards filling your desk, or even those presents that mean so much, like a plastic champagne glass decorated with stickers and paint. No potlucks brought by customers' parents, and no bowl of chocolate. Do teachers always see the benefit or the effect they have on a student, on their life? Not always. Do we see apathetic students when you work so hard to engage them? Yes. Do we have parents complain when they do not know the full story or knowledge of details correctly? Yep. Are teachers blamed for stereotypes that are being displayed on social media and the news? Of course, of course. I'm not saying that doesn't exist, that those issues are not frustrating and overwhelming at times, but how do we react to those instances? How do we communicate with parents in a way in which allows parents to know their children are safe with us? And when the student you tried to engage so often finally writes the poem he is proud to share with his peers, it is not a thankless job. Teachers are not auto damage adjusters. I was sitting outside the superintendent's office. Inside the room were representatives from the school board, city council, as well as the assistant superintendent, and I was waiting for my turn to share my educational philosophy and answer any questions they might have for me as to why I should be District Elementary Teacher of the Year. You know, no pressure or anything. I didn't sign up for this, nor did I feel comfortable with the notoriety because I worked with amazing teachers in my school that were much more qualified and with more experience to represent the district than me. As I walked into the room, I was nervous. My hands were shaking and I quickly clasped them so others would not see how I felt inside. They asked me several questions, one in which allowed me to share the following. I was teaching 5th and 6th grade science at the time, and we had just experienced a lunar eclipse. My students had sent me a picture of the eclipse for extra credit. I remember being so excited about this because I was happy they had been motivated to do something outside of school. That was, of course, so cool. I was receiving evidence they were actually doing it through email, actually seeing it. I loved how they were in awe of the world around them and the way it worked. They were learning in a way I could not physically replicate for them in the classroom. Okay, I might have been getting excited about all of this, and my excitement, my enthusiasm for the profession was felt by the panel. At a dinner a few weeks later, I was named the District Elementary Teacher of the Year. I got a trophy that I'm still not sure where to put, and I got the thanks of the entire district. Best of all, I got on the marquee of my school, Mrs.Bright, T-O-T-Y. Other people recognize when you are doing what you love. They feel your enthusiasm and know you are doing what truly motivates students to be lifelong learners. 8 years later, I was again honored as Teacher of the Year for my intermediate school and went to the scary next round for the district honor. This time, I only had to answer essay questions and turn them into the district office. A lot less scary, thankfully. One morning thereafter, I was told to go to the courtyard of our school for a special announcement. I was teaching virtually that year, so I brought my students to the courtyard via my laptop. Once we were in the courtyard, my principal had pictures of me, held by many of my virtual students who had returned to campus throughout the year, balloons and other decorations surrounding the area. The superintendent was there and gave me a dozen roses and a plaque for District Elementary Teacher of the Year, a bigger plaque than before and one I'm still not sure where to put. How have you been shown thanks throughout your career by students, parents, and administrators? What untraditional gifts have you received? Do you have an ex-teacher insurance adjuster for a husband? Call me. Okay, Chapter 11, Forever Friends. Who can have a book about why teachers stay in the profession without mentioning all those people who make staying possible? You know, the people who you vent to without judgment, the people you solicit ideas from, the people who offer a safe place to cry and celebrate with you for each battle won, your teacher friends, peers, mentors, and allies in battle. They are my forever friends and a necessity to stay in a profession. Now, if you are my teacher friend and you have actually made it this far into my book, you deserve to have your name mentioned, but alas, I cannot name everyone in here because that would be a book in itself. So here is a condensed list of all those who have helped me along the way. You know who you are. The principal I was sure I was going to work for someday. You are my children's principal. You were always willing to give the okay to my PTA talent show ideas, and you stood up for me when another mom went PTA crazy on me. If you've ever served in PTA, you know what I mean. Parent-Teacher Association. You know who you are. That one teacher who persuaded me before the school year started to switch my daughter from her class to mine. She knew what a special year that would be for a mom and a daughter, and I will always be forever grateful. You know who you are. The teacher who helped persuade me to join a science collaborative to become a better teacher and get a new iPad and a laminating machine and more. I gained so many resources for my classroom and learned so much the years I spent with you and the collaborative. And you came to visit me in New Mexico. And I'm waiting for you to come visit me in Alaska, too. You know who you are. That one teacher who helped me survive a very hard year where the obstacles seemed to mount up higher and higher each week. Your friendship, encouragement, and vacuuming skills. Yes, we cleaned our own classrooms due to custodian shortages, are just some of the qualities you possess that cannot be adequately thanked. You know who you are. You know who you are. My 2 team teachers who gave me virtual ideas, danced with me in Zoom classes, and helped me survive the virtual school year caused by the pandemic. We will never forget the awesome virtual talent show, which included a performance by one of our students jumping on their bed, and feeling awesome when a student commented, "This is the first year I haven't been bullied." You know who you are. To the person who stays on my reference list and has given way too many references for a teacher who moves around too much, I promise I am staying in Alaska for a long, long time, and I promise to get you a job here whenever you are ready. You know who you are. The principal I judge all other principals by. You know who you are. The kindergarten teacher who gave me a chance to be her team teacher because I was a more experienced teacher, even if that wasn't in the kindergarten grade. And thanks for the bathroom breaks. I will forever be grateful for my forever teaching friends. Who are your forever friends? When has a teaching peer been all you needed to get through difficult times in the classroom? When has a teacher peer gave you advice that is meaningful and helpful to your situation or particular student? And when is the last time you vented to your forever friend? If more than 24 hours, it's been too long. Chapter 12, My First and Favorite Students. I still remember walking across campus at 18 years old. I was over 1,000 miles away from home. A jacket was wrapped around my shoulders because there was a chill in the air. The trees swayed in the breeze and the campus buildings towered overhead with the mountains surrounding them. Statues of prominent people in history were scattered across campus, and I had no idea what I was doing there. I knew I wanted to go to college. I knew which one, but I did not know what I wanted to be when I grew up. Or maybe I did. I wanted to be a mom. I didn't finish my degree then. I eventually got married. I worked as my husband finished his degree, and then I had 3 babies. Cameron, my oldest daughter, Karsten, my son, and Caden, my forever baby. They are the best things I have ever been a part of, and in most cases, despite their mom and dad, they have blossomed into beautiful humans and adults that I look up to today. My first and favorite students. Holiday lights filled the mall as the shoppers scurried to find last-minute gifts. A Marine was standing beside a box full of Toys for Tots. The Marine was standing in his military uniform, and my little boy looked up to him in awe. Karsten was little, not yet in school, but very much loved camouflage and anything involving soldiers. Binoculars, army vest, a coonskin hat, we're from Texas, so that's a necessity, and more. His little arm was perched near his head, with his hand outstretched across his forehead as much as a little chubby hand can, as he sang to the Marine, "From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli." He was always meant to be a soldier, or should I say, airman. A few years later, on a brisk morning in San Antonio, Texas, my now much older son would be receiving a great honor. It was late October, and the dew was still covered most of the ground and trees. My husband and I were walking toward the pavilion where we would finally be reunited with our son, who had been in boot camp for the past 8 weeks. During boot camp, you have limited communication with your son, which is the hardest thing I have had to overcome as mom. I needed to know he was okay, that all he envisioned the military to be was still what he wanted. After the pomp and circumstance, I headed to the hundreds of airmen. You know I won't be able to get through this story. Sorry. Okay. After the pomp and circumstance, I headed to the hundreds of airmen graduating that day to find Karsten and tap him out. When you tap him, or feverishly, yeah, that's how I would describe it, grab him in your arms, he no longer has to stand at attention, and you can take him from the base for a few hours. His once short, stubby, chubby little body was now tall and lean with big muscles. He likes when I say that. But he was still my little boy, and I was still his mom. I grabbed him and hugged him, so proud of the man he had become and the dream he had realized for himself. It was one of the most amazing moments in my life. On a similar day, a few thousand miles north in Alaska, the sun was bright, and I sat with my students around a parachute. My daughter Cameron had come to help with last day of school activities, and there she sat opposite of her mom, smiling and conversing. Gosh, I'm not going to make it through this chapter. With my students. Her hair glowed as the sun touched it just right, and at that moment I saw the prettiest girl in the world. but I also saw the teacher she would soon become. When Cameron was much younger, we enjoyed being outside and playing. Karsten had just started walking, and quite often he would meander his way near the parking lot of our apartment complex. Cameron would quickly run in front of him and change the trajectory of his wobbly walk. She was so concerned for her brother and was determined to keep him safe. Her demeanor continues as a leader and caregiver, and I have enjoyed immensely seeing her role develop from a 3-year-old watching her younger brother to a college student, wife, and future teacher. I walked quickly out the door of our home in Corpus Christi, Texas, with a smile I couldn't keep off my face. I met the gaze of my husband, who was talking to our neighbor nearby. He could tell immediately what my goofy gaze meant, and he proudly announced to our friend, "We are having another baby." Kaden had blonde hair, almost white, that whipped across her forehead as she walked with a gait as confident as a 2-year-old with a bigger-than-life personality could be. She had once come up to me and asked, "Mommy, can we play princess? You clean and I'll sit down and relax." She knew who she was from the beginning, and as she grew older, she has kept her larger-than-life personality, often running her brother and sister off the sidewalk as they rode bikes together, and becoming a very talented artist, being able to sketch people with realism most people cannot capture with pencil and paper. So why tell you about my first and favorite students? Maybe because I'm really glad I chose to be a mom, and I'm very proud of my babies. And well, I owe them for all the times I bought prizes and candy for my students and not for them. Boy, did I hear about that injustice many times. Maybe because I couldn't have been a successful teacher if I didn't have them to bounce ideas off of, or steal ideas from some of the activities and lessons their teachers taught. Maybe because life being a teacher wouldn't be the same without my 3 kids, who would often wait in my classroom for the school day to start, or beg to go home when school was through. Or maybe, just maybe, because my first and favorite students are my why. I wanted my kids to have that teacher, so they are a reminder to me to be that teacher. It keeps me on my toes by reminding me of the teacher I wanted for them and the teacher I need to be to live up to those expectations every day. Who are your first and favorite students? Who do you keep in mind as you are entrusted with children each day? How do you set your expectations for yourself as a teacher? Conclusion: the miracle of light energy. If you were to go outside right now and feel the warmth of the sun on your face, it took a little over 8 minutes for the sun's rays to travel all the way from the sun to your face. It took 8 minutes for that light to travel. I've taught this fact I don't know how many times. It is one of my favorite facts, and one in which, if you are one of my students, you know. Holding a Tootsie Roll in my hand, ready to throw it to the student with the right answer, I ask, "How long does it take for the sun's rays to reach my face?" Hands immediately go up, even with some added grunts and moans to indicate their desire to be picked to answer the question. Camden. 8 minutes. That's coming from a 6-year-old boy who gleamed with pride, not only because he answered correctly, but also because he knew he would be getting a Tootsie Roll. Positive reinforcement. As a teacher, and over the many years I have taught this concept, it reminds me a lot of what I do, what we do as teachers. 8 minutes for the light to travel over 93 million miles to our planet, and having that light be so warm, feel so good to our skin, and in which allows all life to exist and survive so abundantly on our planet. It's amazing. It's a miracle, and at the same time, it is an unbelievable feat of the purest and most simplest form. Light traveling to us in a straight line. How often do we have 8 minutes of pure exhaustion, frustration, feelings of failures, overwhelmed, yet when that light hits, how glorious is our joy. 8 minutes of earthquakes, pandemics, and the class of 14 who wouldn't respond to you. 8 minutes of labor pains for your first and favorite students. Okay, maybe it was a little bit longer than that. 8 minutes of lesson failures and being stretched too thin. 8 minutes where you are writing a book and you repeat over and over again, "That was a really hard year for me." It's that split second where a poem is written, a space mission is imagined, the pictures of the moon ding one after another on your phone. The minutes that spill by as a student admonishes his peers on the dangers of alcohol and drug abuse. When NASA engineers agree to speak and inspire your student body, that is why we stay. The letters, the thanks, the fellow teachers who help you through the hard times, that is why we stay. The split second of warmth, the miracle of it all, the light bulb moment, when all else fails, this is why I continue to stay. It is what we do as teachers. It is who we are, and it is the difference we make for so many, including ourselves. When all else fails, that 8 minutes will end. The sunlight will hit your face, and a joy beyond all others will be felt as you recognize the difference you are making every single day. To the student who sits in the red group with brown hair, to the student who is secretly playing his favorite music under his hoodie. When all else fails, this is why we stay.